It is 12:41 p.m. Friday, September 10th, 2021. So far, 21 out of 50 states have declared that they will not enforce or abide by the plan that former President Joe Biden established by executive order yesterday or the day before. I think it was yesterday. The official White House YouTube channel video of the presentation of his speech regarding that order has 8.5K dislikes to about, what was it, 495, 485, three digit, there's no thousands there, 400 some odd, almost 500 likes. 8,500 dislikes to almost 500 likes with 50,000 views. And you know those numbers are massaged, and the comments are off. And there was no live stream chat while it was on. "21 states have said they're not going to participate. I believe my state is one of them. I hope so. It's not a good look for the whole country, and it's not a good move by that president. We'll use that with quotes and an asterisk. Canvassing in Arizona confirms the findings of the audit, which have yet to be publicly released. However, people that have seen both are like, yep, time to act. With the eviction moratorium, the executive branch sidestepped or otherwise circumvented both checks and balances from both other branches of government. The judiciary and legislative branches attempted to stop this, and the president said no. So there's a number of what could be said to be unconstitutional edicts. Possible that it could be interpreted that the outcome of the Afghan withdrawal that had to do with the Taliban receiving a ton of viable equipment, much of which will be sold to hostile foreign nations, Taliban themselves being considered a wartime enemy, that constitutes treason. Giving aid and succor to enemies during a time of war, well, giving them your weapons is definitely aid. And we're probably going to be paying them money, which is succor. So that's going on. I did a little bit of looking, seeing what the news articles were saying. They're talking about the fact that Rand Paul, as a specific example, has a reason not to take the vaccine because of an adverse reaction that he's already had to other vaccines, that his doctor said, yeah, that will continue to happen. And what the news articles are not mentioning is that the executive order itself actually does not require legislators or their staff to be jabbed. Now, this does not necessarily apply to mask mandates, but as far as the shot goes, Apparently, there are private companies that are fighting back as well, but I'm not sure what the big corporate ones are doing, whether they're cooperating or not. Um, this idea of mass produced rapid testing available cheaply in all stores and a mandate that all people test constantly. Uh, there are too many other variables in the process of this testing. In what I mean by that is that there are a number of ways to render false positives. There are defective test kits that may render false negatives, and mass production and mass distribution in that way does not necessarily uh, enhance any ability to be scientific with those tests. And so, how accurate they're going to be, I don't know. How far they're going to get into actually doing this, I don't know. Seen the speculation that this is an uproar causing distraction from the colossal failure in Afghanistan. I personally believe now that they legit have a guy with dementia calling the shots most of the time, and other times he's handed things to sign and told what to say. But then there are other times they're like, okay, sir, there you go, plan the withdrawal. Okay, well, we're here to do troop withdrawal, right? Yep, okay, withdraw the troops. Oops. Um, One of the things about this order, what he's trying to do is make it so that anyone who receives any kind of benefits or assistance from the federal government is required. Now they moved pretty damn quick, didn't they, to that? They're accelerating. They're moving past the slow incremental steps, and it is becoming that exponential speed up of terminal velocity. We are rolling down the curve right now as far as the time that it's going to be in between things that they try and do. And once they start doing it quickly, they keep doing it faster and faster. Because we are already at the point where, you've heard me say this before if you've paid the slightest attention to me in the last year. Dependence breeds compliance. If you wish to receive assistance, we're going to require your obedience. I am currently not on any assistance programs, state or federal. It's tough. It's difficult. My prep situation could be a lot better than it is. But I'm not receiving letters asking me to provide proof of anything, or else I will lose my something or other. And I think when enough people, you're going to have some folks that have health issues that are on disability, they're going to take this and they're going to have the adverse effects because of their health issues. And there are other people that are literally dependent on it that are just not going to take it. And they're going to lose their assistance, and they're going to basically increase the number of homeless. The argument by a lot of the business owners in states that are in the category but refusing to comply, what they're saying is it's hard enough to get people to work for you right now, and then on top of that to try and demand something, and if you lose a good worker because of that, you've just lost a good worker. So no, they will not be complying, and I'm hoping that a lot more places, including the one that I work for, will say something like that. Have no idea what the corporate ownership of the franchise brand is going to impose, if there is anything, or whether employees will become contractors for legal purposes, because and even there, unless that gets specified by corporate overlords at the particular companies to say, well, our rules for our company are going to be all contractors, just like the government. And the thing with the government contractors that I just saw something pointed out was, there are people that are considered government contractors that literally all they do is they sell a product to the government. and they sell it by contract. That's why they're contractors. They're not like people that go and work on the Capitol grounds. So those people are going to be required as well. It's like completely unrelated businesses that happen to. So either these companies, if they want to keep their employees, because their employees say, no, we're not going to do that, you can fire me. And then the business owner has to make a decision. And if the business owner's like, well, crap, then I guess we don't get that cushy government contract. But then if we don't get that cushy government contract, some of you guys have got to get let go. That's how that goes. Nothing whatsoever about that executive order is going to benefit anyone except for rich people and douchebags that like fascism and other authoritarian type things, because there's a semantic argument when it comes to that. Well, this isn't real fascism, just like real communism's never been done. And this isn't even, no, this is crypto-fascism, this is neo-fascism, this is simply authoritarianism, this is trying to become totalitarian. And totalitarian means total rule. They're trying to control every single aspect of your life. And it's so funny that the people that are behind this kind of thing, not causing it, but the ones that are in favor of it, used to be the ones who were vehemently against religious people imposing their fundamentalism on others. The expression was, fundamentalists want to control people fundamentally. And now, that is what we're looking at, is a type of medical fundamentalism of this idea of safety. And it is about as realistic as the 6,000-year-old young earth creationism theory is when it comes to lockdowns, COVID restrictions, masking, vaccines, what they are and are not allowing to be prescribed, the official narrative, the news, people's behavior, social media rules of conduct, misinformation, fact-checking. It's same things in just different areas of absurdity, of ignorance is the nicest way I can put it. I think people are recognizing that it's not going to help, but I went and I got some food last night, and I just asked some folks if they knew what was up, and of course, the usual truther types were like, yeah, I read into that, that's not a good deal, and all the other people were like, I don't know, man, I heard he bombed somebody at some point. And then other folks were like, okay, so there's a thing, but it's what? And they didn't really know anything about it. And so it's like, yeah, well, here's hoping that the state says, no, we're not going to bother with that. That seems to be the case in ours. And something I pointed out to a coworker yesterday was like, Iowa's not going to enforce it, but Illinois will. So people who work at businesses in Iowa that live in Illinois are going to be fine, but people who live in Iowa that work in businesses in Illinois are going to have to make a choice. And those businesses in Illinois are going to have to make a choice as to whether they're going to follow or not. There's a lot of, it's like Illinois is one of those states where there's like 2 or 3 big like college towns or like a major metropolis like Chicago, and those places tend to be blue. But of course, if you wanted to investigate forensically into that, you might find out the story's a little different. But other than that overwhelming blueness that is just enough to tip the scales every single time, the rest of the state is pretty farm fields and backwoods. And in some places in the southern part, mountain foothills. So this is not blue country otherwise. So it'll be interesting to see. There was one local business open in the small half-dead town across the river just into Illinois, and even though the rules were like nobody can run, they were like running because they were the only business of their type in the area. They were the only business in town, and as long as the town was cool with them running business, they had people coming in from across the river because it was a bar. And even there, they're barely making money. They can't advertise because it's not legal to be open. So this is what I was saying several videos ago about a time of making a choice is coming. Everyone is going to have to decide. And it used to be the thing for me was to go around and talk to people about things that were really going on and answer questions or correct misinformation or whatever. And over time, that's grown and changed because the system's adaptation to people like me has grown and changed. They've become much more aggressive at propagandizing against truthers and using counterintelligence propaganda to taint the conversations among people who honestly believe that what they're looking at is a secret truth, even if what they're looking at may actually just be a presentation to deceive. I know that's the way it ended up turning out that it used to be in the truth community the entire time, actually. It was always controlled opposition. Time for a choice is very, very near. It is effectively upon us. The choice is, will you abide by your principles of what you know to be true and right? Will you just do what you got to do to get by? And by that I mean exceed. A seed, is that how you ACCEDE? To conform, to comply, to obey. Even if you know it's wrong, or even if you know that there really isn't enough information to choose that. The choice comes in a different form for every person. This is an example that Tim Pool gave. It's very compelling, though. A pregnant woman has to make a choice whether she wants the paycheck that she's earning and she got pregnant at the job. You can make arguments and debates about the choice of getting pregnant. But the doctor has said, well, you have to make the choice because I can't, I would say get the vaccine, but there's not enough data on, effects on fertility, pregnancy, etc. So, the actual documentation of the legal approved and authorized comirnaty. It's so hard to say. Says that there are no long-term studies yet because the studies are not complete and there is no data to determine in either direction. It says either way, there's no way to tell. That was the same thing as the inconclusive mask science. So to say it's safer to do one thing than the other when the results are 50-50 inconclusive is just not true. You could randomly luck out and pick the good outcome, or you could randomly throw snake eyes and get the worst outcome. And it is the same thing there. Except rather than whether or not there's a possibility you might catch other things too, whether or not what you're doing is actually preventative or not, for something that is just basically being a matter of you catching it or not, whether or not you'll overcome it has to do with other factors, right, that nobody wants to talk about with your health. But when you've got a life inside you and you have to choose, am I going to be able to pay the bills with that job? The government's making mandates. The doctor says the science is inconclusive. There's the choice. Because it's like, you don't know what this could do to you. You don't know what this could do to your child. You just don't know. And maybe it could turn out to be fine, but maybe it could turn out to be not fine. And they've made it so that a doctor that prescribes it can be held accountable for malpractice, but the company that makes it Cannot. Which is why doctors are saying, I'm not going to prescribe it, you make the choice. It's the same kind of verbal avoidance of liability as the kid with the fake money the other day, saying, this is my cousin's money, he left, but he left his money, this is his money. Well, I think you should take it, but I'm not going to prescribe it, but you can take it if you want. Because the doctor doesn't want to get sued for malpractice if something bad happens with this relatively untested product. The choice is coming. The thing that scares me the most out of it is that when I talk to people about any of this kind of stuff, that most folks are just like, I don't know anything about it, I guess I'm probably just going to do what they tell me. And it's like, okay. Hindsight in the past has shown what a lot of people would refer to as predictive programming. The whole Simpsons predicted whatever, and they predicted all the stuff, right? There are other things that have also been quite predictive, and these include series that were canceled off of Amazon and comics that got turned into movies that are still popular and all kinds of other things, specifically referring to pandemic-inspired totalitarian takeovers or billionaires obsessed with sterilizing large portions of the population with a fake vaccine. That was actually the plot line of a show that was on Amazon during the pandemic. That was based on a previously existing material to the pandemic. This was already in production when shit hit the fan. And yes, folks, the shit hitting the fan moment was like a year and a half ago. So, that's what I meant when I said people are going to have to make a choice. They're going to have to make a decision. It's going to be a moral and ethical decision. It's not just a decision of whether or not to get a shot. It is a decision about whether or not you are going to comply. Whether or not you are going to insist on the freedom that the founding principles and documents on which the laws and the government which passes and enforces those laws, including the executive branch which signs those laws, the founding principles and the documents that are the basis of the system of government imposing this totalitarian system on us, says that they can't. Are you going to insist that they can't? Or are you going to say, well, okay. The thing that scares me is if you talk about statements that were made by real patriots, by people who fought to establish the country, people who fought against tyranny for the sake of others. A great number of people in the colonies had no fucking clue that the revolution was going on until it became a full-scale war. News spread, holy shit, they're fighting back, cool. And some people didn't like it. They had the Tories and Whigs. The Tories were British sympathizers, and the Whigs were the revolutionaries. To quote those people, to so-called normies, to regular folk, fear comes into their eyes. Now, I understand this. I get it. The culture, the indoctrination for centuries, for millennia, the method of rulership by, okay, there are two forms of rulership. There is threats and coercion. There is mandate from the masses. Okay? You have fear of reprisal for breaking the rules that are set by someone with apparently the means to enforce, versus consent of the governed. People saying, we obviously need some sort of management over infrastructure. We have chosen a system by which we will elect people whose job it is to do that, right? Remember, I mentioned that a couple videos ago. The government's job is to govern, to administer, not to rule. The individual sovereign right to rule. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. This is ruling for America. That is how that works. The president's job is to preside over the executive branch. Now, yes, this is law enforcement. Yes, this is signing off on laws going into enforcement, etc. But when he talks about his job is to protect every American's lives, no, actually, no, that's not the case. In some senses, yes, but generally, no. I'm about to my video size limit, so I'm gonna end it there. The time of the choice is coming. We're just getting started on what the nature of that choice is for a lot of people. I've already made mine.